The workshop began with what remained: onion skins, avocado pits, tea leaves, coffee grounds, kitchen remnants, domestic residue. These materials had already been handled, boiled, consumed, and discarded, and they carried the trace of everyday touch. Participants used these scraps to dye fabrics donated by my Filipino migrant community in Milan. The textiles arrived with their own histories of use, washing, folding, and care. My name is Giah de los Reyes. I'm a Filipino artist based in Milan, and I work with textiles, natural dye, and installation, often thinking through migration, labor, and how people and materials move across places. I originally studied architecture in the Philippines but wasn't able to finish, and I later moved to Milan where I found myself living and working within migrant communities, especially among Filipino women in domestic labor. And I also work in domestic labor myself, and that experience shaped how I approach this project, particularly here in Rome. For Chapter 2, Plantation Architectures, my contribution took the form of a workshop and installation titled Residues of Touch, which unfolded over the second and third days of the symposium. Together, we extracted pigment using these domestic biowaste and dyed on domestic fabrics donated to me that were originally given by Italian employers, or what we call amo. We also used batik wax as a resist technique, so parts of the fabric absorb the dye while others remain untouched. This process of absorption and resistance also became a way of thinking about visibility. Within plantation architectures, plants were processed through drying sheds or curing spaces, infrastructures that prepared them for circulation. And these systems organized not only materials but also labor. That movement continued in the present, in both materials and bodies, but much of it became less visible, especially when it enters the domestic sphere. At the Istituto Svizzero, in a city shaped by layers of construction and reconstruction, it felt important to think about what lie beneath what we see. Rome is often understood through its monuments, but it is also built through accumulation of materials, histories, and residues that are no longer immediately visible. In a similar way, what sustains daily life rarely appears as structure. Domestic work, care work, and maintenance, these are continuous, repetitive actions, but they do not accumulate in visible form, despite holding everything together. The Filipino community is one of the largest migrant communities in Rome, and many Filipinos work in domestic and care labor, supporting households across the city. The work is essential, but it often leaves no lasting trace. I had also been thinking about this through Nefertita Diar's Remaindered Life. She describes how certain lives are necessary to economic systems while being treated as surplus at the same time. Remaindered refers to books that are marked down when they can no longer circulate as profit. It offered a way to think about labor that is essential yet is often overlooked.
He persists.
On the third day of the symposium, we heard El Canto del Viajero by Jose Rizal, a poem about movement and about passing through places without leaving much trace.
The pilgrim will return to his country, shall return perhaps to his shore, and shall find only ice and ruin, Paris loves, graves, nothing more.
It was read by Charito Basa, who also began as a domestic worker and has lived in Rome for decades. She founded the Filipino Women's Council and has long supported Filipino migrant workers through community development and policy work. Her presence added another layer to the ongoing forms of care, organizing, and collective support within the community. For me, this project is also about recognizing the knowledge embedded in everyday practices, especially those carried by migrant communities, knowledge learned informally through experience, yet often unrecognized or considered as knowledge. Creating a space like this allowed these voices to surface, to be shared, and to sit alongside other forms of thinking. Altogether, the fabrics were then rinsed and hung to the borrowed laundry drying racks as a collective structure, assembled from fabric, touch, and residue. What stands in this space is not a monument, but a trace, making visible the labor that usually dissolves into daily life.